Have you ever found yourself in a tense room and felt an almost magnetic pull to make everything okay? An unstoppable impulse to smooth things over, to be the agreeable one, to anticipate the needs of others before they are even spoken, to offer a solution, a compliment, a distraction, anything to diffuse the conflict you can feel simmering just beneath the surface. You have been called a peacemaker. Kind. Considerate. But if you are truly honest with yourself, you know that this impulse is not always calm. Sometimes it feels frantic, desperate, like your own safety, your own right to exist in that room, depends on your ability to keep everyone else happy. This is not a personality trait. It is a survival strategy. It is the fourth, lesser-known trauma response alongside fight, flight, and freeze. It is called the Fawn Response. The great depth psychologist Carl Jung would see this as a masterful creation of the psyche, a persona so perfectly crafted, so agreeable that it becomes a kind of shadow shield. A shield designed to protect the terrified, vulnerable parts of you hidden in the shadow. But the price of this shield is the slow erasure of the self. Today, our shadow work is to look with compassion at this shield, not to tear it down, but to understand why you had to build it in the first place, to honor the brilliant survivor within you. To begin this work of compassionate understanding, let us acknowledge our shared experience. In the comments, simply write, "I am here to understand the peacemaker."
To truly understand the Fawn response, we have to look at it not as a psychological flaw, but as a biological imperative. Our nervous system is ancient, and its primary directive has never changed: keep us alive. It is constantly scanning our environment, asking one fundamental question: am I safe? When the nervous system perceives a threat, it has a classic menu of options. First, it will try the social engagement system, to connect, to talk, to reason. If that fails, it escalates, to fight, to use anger and aggression to neutralize the threat, or to flight, to run away and escape the danger. But what happens when the threat is a caregiver you depend on for your very survival? What happens when the source of danger is also the source of your food and shelter? You cannot fight them. That would be catastrophic. You cannot flee from them. Where would you go? When fight and flight are taken off the menu, the nervous system, in its profound wisdom, activates a more subtle, more sophisticated strategy. Fawn. The fawn response is the strategy of appeasement. It is the instinct to neutralize the threat by making yourself pleasing, helpful, and indispensable to the source of the threat. You learn to anticipate their needs, to mirror their emotions, to agree with their opinions. You become a perfect, flawless mirror, reflecting back to them exactly what they want to see. And in doing so, you make yourself non-threatening. You make yourself valuable. You make yourself safe. This is a brilliant strategy, but it comes at a devastating cost. In order to become a perfect mirror for someone else, you must erase your own reflection. This is where the work of Carl Jung becomes so crucial. The act of fawning requires the most extreme form of self-suppression. Every authentic feeling you have that doesn't align with the other person must go into the shadow. Every opinion you hold that might cause disagreement must go into the shadow. Every need you have that might be inconvenient must go into the shadow. Your entire authentic self, your desires, your boundaries, your anger, your sadness, your unique perspective, is exiled. What is left is the persona of the agreeable, helpful, easygoing person. This persona is not a personality. It is a shadow shield, a highly functional but ultimately hollow suit of armor. Let's imagine Jennifer. Jennifer grew up with a mother who suffered from severe anxiety and depression. Her mother's emotional state was fragile and unpredictable. As a little girl, Jennifer learned very quickly that her own needs, her own loudness, her own sadness, her own childish demands could send her mother into a spiral of distress. This felt terrifying to Jennifer. The source of her comfort was also a source of chaos. So, her brilliant nervous system developed a strategy. Jennifer became her mother's little caretaker. She learned to be quiet when her mother had a headache. She learned to tell jokes and be cheerful when her mother was sad. She learned to anticipate her mother's needs for a cup of tea, for a quiet room, for reassurance. She became an expert at managing her mother's emotional state. Her fawning was her attempt to create a stable, safe environment for herself. And in the process, she exiled her own childhood to the shadow. Now, Jennifer is a 40-year-old woman. She is incredibly successful in her career as a nurse. Her patients love her, her colleagues rely on her. She is known as the person who can calm down the most difficult situations. She is still an expert at managing the emotional states of others. But her personal life is in shambles. She feels exhausted, empty, and deeply resentful. She finds herself in relationships where she is always the giver, the caretaker. She cannot say no to a request from her boss, even when she is already working overtime. The thought of stating her own needs in a relationship fills her with a primal terror she cannot explain. Her body is constantly tense. She suffers from migraines and stomach issues. Jennifer's nervous system is still running the old program. It still believes that her survival depends on her agreeableness. The shadow shield that once protected her as a child is now suffocating her as an adult. The very act of being herself, of having a need, of holding a different opinion, of saying no, feels, on a deep, biological level, like a threat to her life. This is the hidden tyranny of the Fawn Response. It is not a conscious choice. It is a deeply embedded automatic response wired into your body long before your conscious mind was fully formed. It is a state of hypervigilance disguised as kindness. You are not relaxed when you are pleasing others. You are working. You are constantly scanning, predicting, and managing. This is why people-pleasing is so utterly exhausting. It is a full-time job your nervous system is performing 24 hours a day to keep you safe from a danger that, in many cases, is no longer even present. This is the first, crucial step of this shadow work. To look at your own people-pleasing not with judgment, but with a profound sense of compassion and awe. To see it not as a weakness, but as a testament to the brilliant survivor you were as a child. You did what you had to do to stay safe. You built a shield, and it worked. And now, as an adult, you can begin the gentle, patient work of letting that child part of you know that the war is over. You are safe now, and you no longer have to erase yourself to survive.
So,
we honor the Fawn Response as a brilliant survival strategy. We see the wisdom of the inner child who crafted this shield to stay safe. But now we must turn with equal compassion to the adult who is still carrying it. And we must honestly assess the cost, because the protection that once saved you may now be the very thing that is imprisoning you. Living in a chronic state of fawning has 3 profound consequences that ripple through every area of your life. Understanding them is a vital part of your shadow work. The first consequence is the complete erosion of your authentic self. As we've discussed, fawning requires you to exile your true feelings, needs, and opinions to the shadow. If you do this consistently, over decades, something insidious happens. You don't just lose touch with your authentic self, you forget it exists. Your persona, the mask of the agreeable person, fuses with your identity. You genuinely begin to believe that you are the person who doesn't have needs, who doesn't get angry, who is happy as long as everyone else is happy. This leads to a specific kind of inner crisis, one that Carl Jung was deeply familiar with. It is the crisis of the person who wakes up in the middle of their life and has no idea who they are. Someone asks you a simple question: "What do you want for dinner?" Or, "What movie do you want to see?" And you draw a complete blank. You are so accustomed to calibrating your desires to the desires of others that you no longer have access to your own. Or worse, someone asks you, "What are your dreams? What do you want for your life?" And all you feel is a hollow, terrifying emptiness. The connection to your own soul, to your own inner guidance system, has been severed. You have become a stranger in your own life. This is the ultimate price of the shadow shield, the loss of the self. The second consequence is the cultivation of toxic relationships. The Fawn Response is a powerful broadcast system. It sends out an unconscious signal to the world that says, "I have no boundaries. My needs don't matter. I exist to serve you." And this signal is incredibly attractive to people who are looking for someone to take from. This is why so many chronic people-pleasers find themselves in relationships, both romantic and platonic, with narcissistic or emotionally immature individuals. It is a perfect tragic lock and key. The person who has no needs finds the person who is nothing but needs. The person who cannot say no finds the person who cannot hear it. You find yourself in a dynamic where you are constantly giving, managing, and placating, and receiving very little in return. You feel unseen, unheard, and unappreciated. And then, the shadow fire we spoke of yesterday begins to simmer. Resentment, a deep, bitter resentment that you feel ashamed of. You tell yourself, "But I'm choosing to do these things. I shouldn't be resentful." But the truth is, it doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like a compulsion. Because your nervous system is screaming that to stop giving, to stop pleasing, is to die. So you are trapped. Trapped in a cycle of giving from a place of fear and then hating the other person and yourself for the dynamic you have unconsciously co-created. This leads to the third consequence, a profound distrust of your own body. Your body is the vessel of your truth. It is constantly sending you signals. The knot in your stomach when you agree to do something you don't want to do. The tension in your shoulders when you are in the presence of someone who drains you. The exhaustion that we talked about on day 1. But the Fawn Response requires you to override these signals. You feel the knot, but you say yes anyway. You feel the tension, but you stay in the conversation. You feel the exhaustion, but you keep on giving. You are teaching your body again and again that its wisdom is irrelevant, that its messages are to be ignored. Over time, the body learns that whispering is not enough, so it begins to scream. This is the deep insight of somatic shadow work. Chronic pain, migraines, autoimmune disorders, digestive issues. These can so often be the voice of a body that has been systematically ignored for a lifetime. It is the physical manifestation of the accumulated no's you never allowed yourself to speak. It is the scream of a self that has been abandoned, crying out for your attention in the only language you have left you. When Chloe looks at her life through this lens, everything starts to make a terrifying kind of sense. The emptiness she feels is the absence of her own exiled self. The string of relationships with demanding partners is the result of the unconscious signal she has been broadcasting. And the chronic migraines that have plagued her for years, she begins to wonder if they are the scream of her own body, begging her to stop abandoning herself. The Fawn Response, the shadow shield, is not kind. It is not gentle. It is a brutal form of self-erasure born from a desperate need for safety. And the journey out of it does not begin with learning to be more assertive. It does not begin with learning clever scripts to say no. It begins with something much deeper. It begins with reestablishing a feeling of safety inside your own skin. It begins with learning to regulate your own nervous system so that someone else's disapproval no longer feels like a life-threatening emergency. It is the work of becoming your own safe harbor.
So we stand here at this profound realization that the shield we call kindness is, in fact, a brilliant, brutal, and exhausting survival strategy. We see the cost, the loss of self, the toxic relationships, the rebellion of our own bodies. And the logical next question is a terrifying one. How do I stop? If fawning is a deep biological program wired into my nervous system, how can I possibly change it? Do I just have to force myself to say no and endure the terror? Here we arrive at the heart of all true trauma-informed healing. And it is a truth that turns our typical approach to self-help on its head. The journey out of the Fawn Response does not begin with words. It does not begin with learning the perfect script to say no. It does not begin with becoming more assertive. It begins with your body. It begins by reestablishing a profound and unshakable sense of safety inside your own skin. Think of it this way. Your nervous system is currently operating from the belief that other people's disapproval is a life-threatening emergency. As long as that belief is active, any attempt to set a boundary will feel like you are jumping out of a plane without a parachute. The terror will always win. So the first step is not to jump. The first step is to weave the parachute. The work is not to change the external behavior first. The work is to change the internal state first. Safety precedes action. This is the compassionate genius of somatic shadow work. We must learn to speak to our nervous system in its own language. And its language is not logic or reason. Its language is sensation, breath, and gentle presence. So let us begin. I want to offer you a simple, foundational somatic practice. It is a way to speak directly to your nervous system in its own language. I call it the grounding hand. You can do this right now as you listen, or you can save it for a moment when you feel that familiar pull of people-pleasing. I invite you to gently place one hand over the center of your chest, your heart space, and place your other hand on your belly, just below your navel. If it feels safe to you, you can close your eyes. Now, take a slow, deep breath in through your nose. Feel your belly expand into your lower hand. And then a long, slow exhale out through your mouth, like a gentle sigh. Feel your chest soften under your upper hand. Let's do that again. A slow breath in, filling your belly. And a long, slow sigh out, letting your shoulders drop. Now, I want you to focus on the simple sensation of your own touch. Feel the warmth of your palm on your chest. Feel the gentle pressure of your hand on your belly. This is the language of safety. This is the touch of a caring parent. And in this moment, that parent is you. As you continue to breathe, I invite you to silently, inwardly repeat these words. Right here, right now, in this body, I am safe. Right here, right now, in this body, I am safe. You are not trying to convince yourself with logic. You are sending a direct, biological signal to the ancient part of your brain that is in charge of your survival responses. The gentle pressure of your hands, combined with the slow diaphragmatic breathing, stimulates the vagus nerve. This is the main nerve of the parasympathetic nervous system. It is the body's natural braking system for anxiety and stress. You are, quite literally, calming your own inner alarm. So let's go back to Jennifer, the nurse who was the caretaker for her anxious mother. She's in a meeting, and her manager asks for a volunteer for a difficult weekend shift. Jennifer feels the familiar, sickening lurch in her stomach. The old program screams, "Say yes, be helpful, keep the peace." But this time, she does something different first. She discreetly places one hand on her lap and the other on her own thigh, just to feel her own presence. She takes one slow, silent breath, and she tells herself, "I am safe." And in the tiny pause that this creates, a new voice has a chance to be heard. The quiet voice of her own truth, which whispers, "I am exhausted. I cannot do this." And from that place of inner safety, she is able to say, "I won't be able to do it this weekend." She still feels a flicker of fear, but it is no longer a tidal wave of terror, because her safety is no longer dependent on her manager's approval. Her safety is in her own hands, literally. This practice is your parachute. It is something you build, breath by breath, day by day. Every time you practice the grounding hand, you are weaving another thread. You are creating a new neural pathway in your brain. You are teaching your nervous system a revolutionary new idea, that safety is not something you have to earn from the outside world. It is a state you can cultivate on the inside. This is the deep, foundational shadow work that must happen before any lasting change in behavior can occur. It is the work of what Carl Jung might call building a strong enough ego, a conscious center of self that can withstand the powerful unconscious pull of these ancient survival complexes. You are learning to become your own safe harbor in the storm of other people's expectations. You are parenting the terrified inner child who learned that they had to perform to survive. You are letting them know through the language of the body itself, "I am here now. You are not alone, and we are safe."
Today, we have looked behind the curtain of our own kindness. We have met the brilliant survivor inside us who learned to fawn in order to feel safe. We have honored this strategy, not as a flaw, but as a testament to our own resilience. We've explored the devastating costs of this shadow shield, the loss of self, the magnetic pull towards toxic relationships,
and the rebellion of a body whose wisdom has been ignored. This is the deep, often painful terrain of shadow work. But we have not stopped there. We have discovered that the path to freedom does not lie in fighting this response, but in cultivating a state of inner safety so profound that the fawn response is no longer needed. This is the wisdom that the psychology of Carl Jung points us towards. True strength is built from the inside out. The practice of the grounding hand is your first step in becoming your own safe harbor. It is a simple, somatic way to send a new message to your nervous system. You are safe. You are here. You do not have to abandon yourself to belong. This work is slow. It is gentle. It is a patient reweaving of your own internal landscape. But with each conscious breath, with each moment you choose to place a comforting hand on your own body, you are performing a radical act of self-reclamation. But what happens to the part of us that has spent a lifetime giving? The part that has poured its own life force into others as a strategy for survival? When we begin to build our own safety, we inevitably come face to face with the vast emptiness that our constant giving has left behind. Why do we feel so hollow after a lifetime of being so full for others? Where does our own soul go when we are so busy tending to everyone else's? This is the sacred void, the soul-level emptiness that we must learn to face. And that is the deep, mystical territory we will venture into together tomorrow on day 6 of our journey. For this week, your invitation is to practice the art of coming home to your own body. It is not about getting it right. It is simply about beginning. Try the grounding hand in a quiet moment in the morning. Try it in your car before walking into a stressful meeting. Try it when you feel that familiar, frantic urge to make everything okay for everyone. Just one conscious, grounded breath. To honor this new relationship with your own safety, I invite you to leave a simple, powerful declaration in the comments below. It is a promise to the scared child within. Simply write, "I am my own safe harbor." By sharing these words, you are anchoring this new truth not just in your mind, but in your actions. And you are joining a community of fellow survivors who are all learning to lay down their shields and finally come home. Thank you for your incredible work today. Your safety has already begun.